Hello, everyone, and good afternoon, and welcome to another narrator interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia, otherwise known as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill. And joining us today is a narrator making their official debut here on the show. Now, my guest today is a DC Baltimore-based actor, singer, voiceover artist, and all-around goofball. She was born and raised in Dunwoody, Georgia, and she was bitten by the theater bug at the age of 12. She played the nerdy class president in her youth choir production at church. Teeny tiny role, but she absolutely loved it. And from then on, she was hooked. She continued to perform with her church community theater group until she attended college. She attended High Point University, where she double majored in music and theater production. And following college, she had the privilege of working as an acting intern at Florida Repertory Theatre at Fort Myers, Florida. She performed in 2 touring shows with the education department, one of which was the world premiere of Journey to Oz by Christopher Parks. And she also had the privilege of performing in several main stage productions, such as One Slight Hitch, Dividing the Estate, Vanya, Sonya, Masha, and Spike. Now she lives in the DC Baltimore area with her out of this world spectacular and wonderful husband. And she began working on her voiceover career back in 2020 and absolutely fell in love with it. Loves narrating books, audiobooks. And in her spare time, she enjoys teaching Pure Barre, crafting reading fantasy books, and relaxing at home. So without further ado, let's give a huge round of applause to today's guest, actor, musician, voice artist, and incredible person, Courtney Feiman. Courtney, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Awesome. I'm so excited to have you here. And I just realized I did stumble over my words in the introduction. So viewers and listeners, the last part is crafting and reading fantasy books, not crafting fantasy books, although wouldn't be opposed to that.
You never know. Maybe one day. I'm always, finding a new hobby, trying new things. So one day there may be a fantasy book out there from Courtney Feiman. We'll see.
That is true. That is absolutely true. But in all seriousness, Courtney, I'm so excited to have you here on the show. So excited to talk to you about your career. And as a little icebreaker, is there something that possibly your fans may not know about you?
Oh, goodness. I am, maybe my fans don't know this, but a lot of my friends know this. I am a big Halloween nerd. I absolutely love Halloween. I teach fitness classes when I'm not narrating, the Pure Barre classes. And so I will dress up for 31 days of Halloween and I will teach fitness classes in my costumes. And it's a lot of fun. And it's just an enjoyable thing to distract people from the fact that they are working out and sweating.
Nice. That is amazing. That is incredible. So you are a jack of all trades when it comes to the performing arts. And I'm really intrigued about your voiceover career. Now, for viewers who are just learning about you, are there any projects you would like to share to let people know your range of voiceover expertise?
Yeah. So I just completed a book in a series. I believe it was the second one. I picked up on the second book. It's a paranormal mystery series about, a Canadian town and this teenage girl. She's going through what all teenage girls go through, experiencing life. And then, she has an accident and all of a sudden she can talk to ghosts. And she's helping solve their murders and helping them find peace. And it is an amazing story. The author is Céline Perron, and she's incredible, the sweetest. Absolutely love working with her. So that's my first dive into paranormal mystery. I've done historical fiction, romance, children's books, YA, teen. But most of my work is in the fantasy realm, and I love fantasy. Yeah.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So before we dive into your background and everything, let's talk a little bit more about you. So from your bio, from an early age, you were bitten by the acting bug and you absolutely loved it. And then later in your bio, you mentioned that you began working in voiceover work back in 2020. Now, I'm very curious, what would be the specific aha moment that really pushed you into the realm of voice acting? Was it from, a new experience you wanted to try out, or was it a particular friend or colleague who recommended it? How did that come about?
Yes, to all the above. I remember I was working in Fort Myers at Florida Repertory Theatre doing The Mousetrap, which is, Agatha Christie. Amazing show. And one of my castmates, um, he he was doing audiobooks at the time. And I was like, wow, that's so fascinating. And another castmate was also doing voiceover work, doing commercials and everything. And they just were explaining the experience. And I was like, that sounds like so much fun. Didn't think of it for another several years. Then the pandemic hit, and I'd been experiencing some burnout with theater, as everybody does. I grew up in the hustle era of the arts where you grind, you hustle, you don't sleep, you suffer for your art, your craft, and that leads to a lot of burnout. So when the pandemic hit, everything just stopped, and it really gave me kind of an opportunity to step back, breathe for a moment, as terrifying as that time was.
Yes.
It also gave me time to reflect, because I was working 4 jobs at the time, and was just exhausted. So no money. And I decided, remember that time that somebody mentioned that they did audiobooks and you grew up listening to, they were called books on tape then, but books on tape, audiobooks. And I was like, I want to do that. That sounds like fun. So I signed up for classes just to figure out what goes into it. And yeah, I took classes and started auditioning, and the rest is history.
Nice. And I have to say, Courtney, I should have mentioned this early in the beginning, but you're probably the second narrator I've had on my show that has a background in theater and the performing arts. And I absolutely think that is really cool to see that transition, that mentality from the stage world into the recording booth. So let's actually dive right into that. So I understand that as a theater kid and getting ready for the theater, you guys have rituals and routines that get you into that headspace. And I'm very curious, when you transition all of that into your recording booth, what new rituals or routines sort of get you into the mind of recording either a scene, a dialogue for a character, or just beginning a new project?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of similarities, a lot of crossover. Obviously, I always warm up my voice. I majored in music, singing performance, and also stage performance. So there's a lot of vocal warm-ups that I do just to wake up my voice, depending on if there's a lot of male characters in the chapter or a lot of female characters, female presenting or male presenting. I will adjust what range I am warming up, just so that if I have a more lower masculine gravelly voice to narrate, I can have that registry to drop into, because I do have a higher pitched voice, a younger sounding voice. But yeah, it's also getting comfortable with the microphone, knowing what kind of a scene it is. If it's more intimate, if it's kind of a boisterous scene, it's all kind of relative, whether I'm closer to the mic or further back or whatever. So yeah, there's a lot of crossover. So most of those rituals kind of stay the same, but it's a lot of singing throughout the entire session.
Nice. Very, very nice. And as our first fan question for the beginning of this interview, one of my viewers asked, what was the most challenging part of transitioning from the theater world into the narration world in terms of equipment, preparation, and tying back to what we said in the beginning, the rituals and the routine?
Oh man. I'd say the hardest part, and I'm sure you get this a lot, but from a performance kid, it was the technology and figuring out how everything works. Because obviously in the beginning, you are every role. You
Yeah.
are the performer. You are the director. You are the marketing. You are the sound tech engineer, everything. And so you're wearing all these different hats. And so it was very, very daunting. A lot of tears. Because when technology decides it's not going to work, it's not going to work. And you have to pivot and you have to get creative. But I had some wonderful, wonderful help along the way. There's so many resources out there, so many people in this community. That's one thing. This community is so helpful and loving and embracing. They take everyone under their wing. So I reached out to a bunch of narrators that I admire and say, hey, what'd you do when this happened? And they recommended sound engineers, and it was just really great. So it was daunting, it was challenging, but there was also a community around me that really helped make those challenging things like technology a little more bearable and manageable for sure.
Awesome, awesome. And I'm speaking on your role as a narrator and a voice artist. What is your promise you're making, not just to yourself as the performer, but also the authors that you work with and their readers too?
Um, it's I am a very passionate person. I absolutely love what I do. Audiobooks have been a part of my life as long as I can remember. We would always take long car rides, and I cannot remember a time that there was not a book on tape, an audiobook, uh, going in the background. And I always promise that I am going to give my 100%. I love these characters just as much as you do. I want to know them. I want you to get lost in the world. Um, it's not just for me, it's for the author, it's for the people who are listening. There is nothing more magical than when you're listening and the world around you just fades. And you see and you hear and you smell everything that's being described to you, and you're lost and you forget that you're listening to a book. And so that is always my goal, and I am going to do everything wholeheartedly to give you that experience.
Awesome. And that actually leads to several fan questions about those topics that you just mentioned. So the first one is when it comes to characters. And one of my viewers asked, for you, Courtney, how do you approach characters in the stories that you're working on and give them a sense of authenticity and complexity?
I always start with obviously reading the book and looking for those key words that the author has sprinkled in there. So those key descriptors of who this person is. And then I kind of dive into my theater background of finding how they exist in their own body. Because yes, I'm sitting here narrating to a microphone, but sometimes it's finding, how they sit, or, how they
Mhm.
hold their chin. I remember there was this one character from one of my favorite books I narrated. It's I'll Come to You, by June Lark. Fantastical historical romance, historical fiction romance. And there was this villainous character, and just all of a sudden I was having trouble finding him. And I said one of his lines while I was like looking down my nose, and I was like, oh, that's how he talks. That is totally how he talks. He's constantly looking down his nose at somebody. So it's finding the physicality and putting it in your body that
Mhm.
sometimes will help you find those characters. And it is just it is such a fun feeling where you're like, aha, that's them. That's them. And you get to do it for every single character. So it's a lot of fun. I find it in my body first.
Nice. And kind of from there, now going to like the setting and the atmosphere and the world, another one of my viewers asked, how do you, as the narrator and the voice artist, craft the world to be engaging and immersive while also appealing to the five senses? As you mentioned before, when the author is able to describe the world or a scene with so many clear sense words that it just takes you to that place.
That's one of the challenging things is when the author has done this incredible job of painting this magical picture that takes you there, and it's your job to convey that with your voice. um I think it all kind of goes hand in hand, where it's a challenge to keep your voice engaging and not take away from the words that the author has written,
Mhm.
and give voice to that. It's one of those wonderful magical things, because they've already painted this picture.
Right.
It's wonderful when those immersive words are describing this scene in a tavern, and you can smell the pie baking in the background, and you can hear the clinking of glasses, and you as the narrator are bringing that world to voice, and they just kind of intermingle and they go together, and I think that one kind of feeds off the other and they go hand in hand.
Beautifully said, Courtney. Beautifully said. And this is another, well, this is a two-part question from one of my viewers. And this actually pertains to your entire career as a theater kid as well as a narrator. And one of my viewers asked, throughout your career on both stage and in the recording booth, what has been your favorite moment or scene to act or perform? And what has been the most challenging scene to act or perform?
Oh gosh, how do you pick just one? Oh gosh. There have been so many. I can find a moment from each show, each book I've narrated that has just left such an impact on me. I adore moving scenes between um, a parent and a child. Those always get me. I am such a family-oriented person. And um, my family has been so monumental in my career. I couldn't have done any of this without them. Um, and in every single book, I have found that there's usually a theme in each of the books that I narrate, that there is a moment between a parent and a child where they're like, I see you, I understand you, and I love you. And those always get me and choke me up. So it's a challenge in a certain aspect of like getting the words out, still having that emotion, but not letting it distract from the moment. I have had to stop recording multiple times because I am actually sobbing ugly crocodile tears. But yeah, I mean, there's just such talent in the writing styles of every single author. I remember from Holiday High by James Arthur, I was so impressed and had so much fun narrating the main character, Arbor Day. He is a little spitfire, and the way he captured the teenage voice was just so much fun for me. And I remember thinking while I was reading it, I was like, this was me in high school. This was absolutely me in high school. She had some sass, she had some fun, and I just remember having to stop because I was howling with laughter the whole time. Like it was great. So I've had a lot of fun with every single book that I've narrated.
Nice. Now, what's probably been the most challenging scene or moment to perform, either in the recording booth or on the theater stage?
Oh goodness. I'd say the first one that comes to mind, without giving away any spoilers if someone hasn't listened to this book, I'll Come to You by June Lark. There was a very emotional scene between two friends, and I'd say this was a very heightened moment where one of the friends got some bad news about a family member. And being in that heightened state was so emotionally taxing and challenging because this went on for almost all of the chapter. And keeping it interesting and keeping the from a technical standpoint, keeping the beats separated and making sure it wasn't, all one level or one tone the whole way through, was very challenging, but it was a lot of fun to do. And when it landed, it felt so gratifying and so good, and like big sense of accomplishment. So that's the first one that comes to mind.
Nice. That is awesome. That is really cool to hear, Courtney. And it seems to me it's like, from what you told me about your career, like you absolutely enjoy the performing arts. You absolutely enjoy the recording booth because it does allow you to experiment with the characters. And I remember talking with another guest of mine, another narrator and good colleague of mine, Luke Bromley, who is also an actor and theater kid. I forget what he said specifically for this question, but there is kind of a sense of like a liberating experience because on stage, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's just your performance right then and there. You're in front of people. There's no quick cut. You can't edit it. It is raw and it is unfiltered. In a recording booth, you could mess up, but you can at least change it and edit it out. On stage, it is completely different. But that mentality, that drive to still give it your all, even things may come up now and then, you still want to give the best performance you can give, whether you're on stage or in the recording booth.
Absolutely. It's there's something to be said about, your first instinct, what you do on the first take. And I've done directing throughout my career as well, and I direct with younger students, usually elementary age, and I will always tell them, I'm like, dive into the emotion, go 100%. It's easier to pull you back than it is to get you to give more. So go all in 100%. We'll find the nuance, we'll dial it back as needed, find the levels throughout the piece. But if you go all in and you give it your all, you find it a lot faster. So it's, yeah, absolutely. That's 100% correct what he said.
Very true. Very, very true. And now we kind of dive into some reflective questions, which I very love to hear your thoughts on. So here's the first reflective question, and context to this. And this question revolves around what it means to be an independent creator, especially in the digital age, because the industry has changed over 20 years. And I've talked with authors, editors, and narrators on this topic, and it has really changed. And specifically when talking with narrators and voiceover artists, the industry has changed significantly because you have everyday people who are able to jump into this industry because they have, like this natural talent for performing. And when I'm talking with guests about this question, specifically narrators, they all said that, 20 years or so, you had people from Broadway or film narrating books, or sometimes you had a theater trope narrating a full-on audiobook. And these people, have honed their craft over numerous years to really perfect it. And now within the last maybe 5 years, you have everyday people jumping into it. And before anyone wrote me in the comments, what I mean by everyday people are those that are not classically trained in the performing arts, but they have a natural affinity to performance, like their voice has this naturality to just bring characters to life. And I think that is awesome. But tying it back to the digital age and what it means to be a creator in digital age, it's a double-edged sword because there are the positives and there are also the negatives. Positive side, as you mentioned, Courtney, the narrating community has been very open to you, collaborating and providing you tips and feedback, which is awesome. But on the other side, of course, with social media, we leave ourselves exposed to a lot of hate speech, trolls, spam, and whatnot. And of course, that also impacts what I call the narrator's block or the writer's block or the editor's block, something that stops us from giving it our all and heightening our imposter syndrome. So for you, Courtney, throughout your entire career thus far, with all that said, what has disciplined you to still give the best performance you can give either to an audience or to the author that you're working with?
It's definitely been a process because, like you said, imposter syndrome is absolutely a thing. And I was kind of coming through in the age of if you're not suffering for your art, then you're not doing it right, which is absolutely false. You have to protect your mental space. And you have to find what your values are and what matters most to you. And what matters most to me is that I'm proud of my work, that the author is happy with what I have presented to them. Yeah, so it's finding those things that ground you, that keep you serene and composed, and focusing on those things. And it's a process. I'm not saying I have my moments where I'm like, these words, these voices, they're getting in my head and I'm feeling down on myself, but it's coming back to your why and who you're doing this for. And for me, I'm doing it for myself and for my family. I'm doing it for that kid like me who just, when they heard these voices, read these books, like the world around you just faded away. Everything got a little quieter and you could just be lost in this magical place. So it's remembering what's important and not letting people who don't know you get in your head.
Very true. Very, very true. And the next reflexive question, I'm actually going to combine these two together into one. So context for this question, I've been doing this show now for about 6-7 years, and I've interviewed out of 429 videos, 189 authors, 45 academics. I want to say about a dozen or so experts in editing, narration, and publishing. I've learned a lot from all these incredible people, and it's just absolutely amazing. And this has sparked a discussion amongst all of us for a majority who began their careers in the 2020s or the COVID years of whether or not, because of those years, we are in a golden age. Some say that we are, some say that we aren't, in the sense that a majority of those who did get into this industry, they didn't do so because they were passionate about it. They did it because they get rich quick. And that ties into AI being used in narration, which I've talked with a lot of my good friends on the show about it. They absolutely hate it because it diminishes the craft and creates a false sense of creativity, and it mass produces it. And a lot of narrators don't like it because, first and foremost, not only does it take away their jobs for audiobooks, but there's this big fear of their voices being taken and being used by corporations who market it as so and so, but it's not them, and they don't get any royalties. So, with all that said, Courtney, do you believe that we are in a golden age, a new age, or a semi-dark age?
I would say we are in a stage of growth and change. And I will say that human voices will always win because listeners want that authenticity. You can tell when a narrator is in it. They are in it with the words. So I think it's finding where the AI fits in. It's not in the creative realm, taking
No.
work away from these artists who put their heart and soul into stuff. And I think that will always win. That will always prevail. It's a beautiful thing that there are so many new narrators are coming into this, because I think there's a space for everybody in this world. There's always going to be new books being created, and if my voice isn't right for it, somebody else's voice is, and that's great, and that's wonderful. I love it when I get an email that says, "Hey, your audition was fantastic. However, I found my voice for my book." And I genuinely mean it when I email them back and I say, that is awesome. That is amazing, because I am under no illusion that my voice is going to be right for every single book. And finding your voice for your work is wonderful. So we're in a space of growth. I think there is a space for everybody in this world, in this community. It's a very welcoming community, and it is wonderful and it's supportive. And also, human voices will always win.
Very true. Very, very true. And now that segues into now the business side of being a narrator. And as some icebreaker questions, these come from, again, two viewers, and I'm going to combine together. And they ask, what was the most surprising aspect you learned about the narration industry when you first joined back in 2020? And secondly, looking on your career as a voiceover artist up to now, is there anything you would have done differently?
Probably a lot. I think what surprised me was, I guess, honestly, what surprised me, and actually in a good way, was the community. Because I'm so used to the theater world. Like, you're trained to go to an audition and then forget about it, because you will probably never ever hear from those people again. And it's still true. Do the audition, forget about it. But I've been so amazed. I have heard from every single author, good or bad, that I have auditioned for, saying, yes, you got it, we love you. Or I found another author, you didn't get it, but thank you so much for your time. I love your voice, just not right for this project. And that means so much, and it's wonderful, and I've really enjoyed that. On the flip side, I didn't realize I should have gone to school for marketing, because I'm having to market myself. And that's also been fun, like finding my creativity in designing, social media posts and everything. Social media is a bear, and
Yes.
it's a hate can / tolerate relationship. But it's also been fun finding creativity in, posts. I like posting my bloopers because they're funny and they're real, and it shows that, yeah, we all mess up. Um so yeah, that's been the surprising bit about it. And I've been babbling for so long. What was the second part of the question?
The second part was, looking back on your career thus far, is there anything you would have done differently?
Yes, so much. No, honestly, I'm of the mindset that, everything happens for a reason, and those bumbles and stumbles and getting back up gets you to where you are, and you learn from it. If I could choose one thing, it would probably be that I wasn't so hard on myself. Just breathe. Don't be such a perfectionist. Just have fun.
That is very true. That is very, very true. And we're almost near the end of this incredible narrator interview. So I have a few last questions that I want to make sure to ask you, because I think these are really important to ask. So the first one is, if you can tell me briefly, as a narrator and also as an actor, how important is it to find your voice and to showcase your individuality in the performing arts and in the narration world? Because we're always going to be inspired by things around us. We don't want to copy or imitate another's performance.
I think it's very important. I also think it's also important that you can draw inspiration from others. There's so many narrators and just people I know that just inspire me, that how they carry themselves, how they talk. I'll infuse their personality into a character. I will infuse my grandmother's sass into a character often. So I think it's important to take inspiration from the world around you, but also just be sure and confident of your voice and what you bring to the table, because there is only one you.
Mm-hmm.
And so give that to the world. It's magical and it's beautiful.
Very, very true. Now, in regards to the audience as a narrator, how important is it, in your opinion, for new narrators to understand that, just like authors, there are going to be people who are going to enjoy your performance and heavily critique your performance?
That is just part of it. I think one of my favorite reviews, actually, of my work was the reviewer was not sure of my voice in the beginning, but they came around. They were like, actually, okay. And, I was like, I respect that. I respect that, because my voice isn't for everybody. And that's okay, because where my voice isn't right for them, it's right for them over there. And I'm the same way. There might be a narrator that everybody else adores, and I'm just like, yeah, they're great. They're fine, but I like this one better. So it's part of it. Don't get bogged down by it, because you might not be somebody's cup of tea, but you're someone else's cup of tea or coffee or whatever they prefer to drink.
Very true. Absolutely very true. And here's a big one before we get to the final two questions, Courtney, because I think this is a very big, important one. And I love asking narrators this specifically, and it is the power of saying no. Now, what I mean by
Oh,
that statement is I talked with a lot of narrators on this show about what that means. And I've given examples of, I imagine there are going to be some books that you probably have gotten calls for to narrate. And there have been, upon reading them, it's like, I don't feel that I'm the best narrator for it. And as you mentioned before, not every book's going to resonate. Not every narrator is going to be the right fit. But even when you're like halfway through like reading it, there are going to be some themes or tropes or stuff that needs to be talked with in the beginning, especially if they have trigger warnings or everything that need to be mentioned. So for you, Courtney, I would love to hear your thoughts on how, as narrators, you guys have the power to say no, and also for the authors out there to let them know that how important it is to be transparent with their narrator, to let them know this is what the book is fully about and this is what it contains.
it's very refreshing and helpful when you get those content and trigger warnings up front, because it helps your narrator make an informed decision, because you don't want to get halfway through and then there's something triggering for that person that they didn't know was going to be in there, and then you have to backpedal and assess. And so I've been very fortunate with the authors that I've worked with. They've all been very upfront. I have said no to quite a few projects because I didn't feel I was the right person, or the content just didn't align with my values or the headspace I was in. It also could be a timing thing. You also have to know your limits and what you can do within a certain time span. I am pregnant with our first child, who is due next month, and I had to say,
Congratulations.
thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're very excited. He's listened to me read a lot of stories over the past year. But I've had to say no to a lot, even though I want to say yes, because I know that he could really come any day now. And that is not fair to me, and it's not fair to the author who is asking me to do these things. So there is a power and a peace in saying no, and it's important to know your why, as to why you're saying no. If it's out of fear, maybe assess that, but I'd say just knowing your time constraints, knowing your moral compass, and knowing all the things that go into that book really help you inform that no.
Very true. Very, very true, Courtney. And now we're right at the final two questions of this incredible narrator interview. And the two questions are, what is your advice? He's given a lot of great advice throughout this amazing interview. What is some more great advice that you would love to give to aspiring narrators and voiceover artists who want to get into this industry? And ultimately, at the end of the day, what do you want listeners, readers, and the authors that you work with, what do you want them to take away from your performance?
I'd say to narrators wanting to get into this, do it, jump in, dive in, however you want to go, head first, feet first, doesn't matter, just do it. It's so much fun, and don't get bogged down by all the details that go into it. Just start with one thing. Ask for advice. This community is amazing. It's wonderful. There's so many people out there willing to help you. You can reach out to me. I will help you. With what little I know, I will help you. And to authors and listeners who listen to my work, I hope that you take away the world that I'm trying to present to you. I hope you get lost in it. That's always my goal. I am so passionate about what I do. When authors come to me with their precious baby of a book, you handing it to me, that it's now my baby, and I'm going to treasure it as much as you do. So thank you for trusting me, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make it as magical as you created it to be.
And on that note, viewers and listeners, we conclude this amazing and heartfelt narrator interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I want to give a huge thank you to Courtney for making her official debut here on the show. We wish her the very best in her career. Now, Courtney, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find you on social media if they want to connect with you? And do you have any upcoming audiobook projects that you would like to make announcements for?
Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast. Yeah, you can find me on mostly Instagram. My handle is at courtneyfeiman.vo. And my website, www.courtneyfeiman.com. And yeah, we are in baby prep mode for the rest of the year. But come 2026, we're diving back in with more projects. The next book in the Caged Curse series by Celine Perron. Go give her a follow. She's amazing. And yeah, sky's the limit.
Nice. And as a final last minute rapid fire fan question, are there any special shout outs you want to give to fellow narrators and possibly fellow authors who have helped you on your journey?
Oh yeah, there have been so many supportive moms who have reached out. I think you've interviewed Amber. She's amazing. Amber does audio. Thanks to her and Jess Morin and Marie Mitchell. They've all, I love the moms that have reached out to me and just like, you got this, girl. You can do it. And just my family for always being so supportive. So thank you. And thank you for having me on here. This has been a blast.
Absolutely. And also glad you shout out Amber Does Audio, because I also had her here on the show, and she is, I love her. I absolutely love her. I love the blue hair.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, she's amazing.
Yeah, she was one of the first ones to reach out to me when I announced that I have had a little one, and she's like, "You got this." So precious, awesome stuff.
Amazing, Courtney, amazing. Well, viewers and listeners, I will provide all that down below in the description of this video. And if you want to check out Amber's interview here on the show, I will tag it here to check out, as well as her performance as Symbol for The Gathering. Yay. Thank everyone for joining us for another amazing, all-around incredible narrator interview. A huge thank you to Courtney. We wish her the very best in her career, as well as for her family. And if you are an author looking for a narrator, make sure to follow her to possibly have her scheduled for a potential casting call for 2026. Be on the lookout for that. And as always, viewers and listeners, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with all new information. And until next time, this has been The Wandering Scribe and The Wandering Quill, signing out. Wish you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you all in the next episode.